Welcome, everyone, to the Black Sports Ministries Network Summer Webinar Series, Double Dutch Dialogues. I'm so happy you all are able to join us. We do ask that you put yourself on mute. If you're able, we would love to see your face. So if you could turn your cameras on, that would be great. If not, we understand we are recording this webinar and we will later put it up on YouTube. But to get going, just going to share a little bit about ourselves, the Black Sports Ministry Network Incorporated. And last year of 2024, we were officially incorporated. We received our 501(c)(3), and we're just moving ahead in our online programming, our online courses, and able to connect to different coaches, athletic directors, and athletes right now in the Boston area, but we hope to expand that. Um, and our mission is simple. It's to provide spiritual care and support services rooted in Black culture, spirituality, and theology to members of the African diaspora in sports, regardless of religion, sexual orientation, or intellectual or physical abilities, helping them to navigate challenges they may face while being Black, an athlete, and a person of faith in a healthy and a holistic manner. And we do that by collaborating with pastors, chaplains, scholars, and others by creating and cultivating a unique perspective and platform for education, empowerment, and social advocacy. So, this is one of the things that we do that's open to everybody, regardless of race or religion, so we can continue to embrace our community and those who are in sports. Introduce our moderator for tonight, and that is Chaplain Daniela Harrigan. She is a movement chaplain, ordained minister, and a graduate student of Boston University School of Theology. She serves as a director of community engagement for Massachusetts Department of Mental Health, and she recently joined the Boston Advisory Action Council for the Black Sports Ministry Network. Rooted in the African diaspora, Daniela centers healing and liberation through ancestral African practices and womanist frameworks. She uplifts faith, activism, and collective care, drawing inspiration from Fannie Lou Hamer's words, "Nobody's free until everybody's free." Daniela offers spiritual support to justice movements, including advocacy for Palestine, labor rights, and immigration justice. She also leads healing and restorative circles across faith spaces and communities. In 2024, she joined Worcester's Interfaith and now serves on the steering committee for Massachusetts Communities Action Network, MCAN. She holds a master's in criminal justice from Suffolk University, a bachelor's in legal studies from UMass Amherst, and is pursuing her MDiv at BU with a focus on chaplaincy and religion and conflict transformation. A Massachusetts native of Cape Verdean and Black Southern descent, Daniela is a loving spouse, mother, auntie, and passionate advocate for equity and community healing. And before we introduce our presenter for tonight, we're going to play a little clip to help us get to know our speaker.
I want you to think back to when you were a child. Really do it, don't just pretend. What did you do? We didn't have the burdens of life. We didn't have all the baggage of the world and the work. We just played free and happy and joyful. And the problem is that we're continuously pouring out of an empty cup. We're not making the time and space to fill our cup, but we don't value that in society. What I'm hoping to do in my class is say, that's important, and we need to push back and resist that actively. If God and Jesus make time to play, then don't you think we also might need time to play?
Thank you, Cynthia. Peace and blessings to everyone. It is my pleasure to be here this evening and to be part of this conversation. I truly, truly loved this book and this dialogue. So without further ado, let me introduce our speaker for this evening. Reverend Dr. Lakisha R. Lockhart is a mother, wife, daughter, sister, former Zumba instructor, womanist, and coolest auntie around. She believes in the power of play, movement, aesthetics, and creative arts in life and in theology, using the body as a locus for theological reflection. She's a consultant, immediate past executive secretary for the Religion Education Association, in her professional role as Associate Professor of Christian Education at Union Presbyterian Seminary. She is not only a teacher, but a facilitator, a rope jumper, game player, advocate, and catalyst for critical conscious engagement in educating in faith and actually living into that faith through various spiritual and artistic practices for liberation. This Southern lady hails from Columbus, Georgia, by way of Waynesville, Missouri. With further ado, here's our presenter, Dr. Lockhart.
Thank you so much, Chaplain Daniela. I appreciate it, and thank you all for the invitation and for being here with you all. I mean, I feel like I definitely have to start by saying I see faces that I know, so I just want to say hey to Gary, Christina. Oh my goodness, it's so good to see you. And I feel like you have to know that the name that says Barbara Hannah, that's actually my mom, and she secretly stalks all the things that I do, which I absolutely love and adore. So hey, Mama, I appreciate you as well. And so thank you all for offering this to the public as well, because she just kind of likes to see what I do as opposed to just talk about it. So thank you. I am so excited to be with you all to talk about Double Dutch, to talk about play, to talk about all of that. And I'm gonna set my timer because I also believe in staying within my time, because I want to make sure we have space and time for great conversation, because I get real excited about this stuff. So first and foremost, I just want to say hey. And also, I want everyone to take a moment just to think about, when was the last time you played? Just think about it. I don't need the specifics, but I want you just to pinpoint a moment and a feeling. And when you have it, I want you to go in the chat and say, got it, and whatever that feeling is. So maybe it was joyful. Maybe you were grieving, right? It can do so much. So got it, and then the feeling. So got it and joy, got it and anger, got it and rage, whatever the feeling was, got it, inspired. Okay, I see you, Gary. Okay, what else? Okay, Rose, I see you, got it, peace. Yes, bicycling is play. Oh yes. Don't worry, I'm gonna define all these things for you. Absolutely. Okay, got it, fun, got it, happy, got it, peace, restoration, euphoria, recharged, yes, relieved, contemplative, yes, freedom. Don't get me started. Well, we will get started. So I wanted you all to start that way. Number one, I want you to keep that feeling with you as I go through, as we talk, as this conversation happens, because so often when we think about this, we try to get real cerebral. And I want us to remember that play is a deeply embodied feeling. It's also a very deeply embodied part of who we are. And I want us to think about that as we're talking, as we're discussing, to remember the freedom and the joy that play brings, because it can do so much. It is vast, it is wide, it holds space for lament, it holds space for grief, it holds space for so much joy and freedom. And I want us to think about that as we talk. I know I'm going to talk a little bit specifically about my book, but I really want to talk about kind of how I define play, how I think about play, and what that looks like as a womanist scholar in particular, right? And why that's so important for me as a Black woman. So I'm going to share a Prezi. A Prezi kind of moves in and out. So I just want to prepare you for a little bit of the screen moving in and out, just so you can prepare yourselves. Okay. All right. And so I'm hoping that everyone can see this okay. All right. And so first and foremost, I just want to say how I kind of define play. Someone in the chat asked, is bicycling considered play? And for me, yes. And we'll go through this and I'll tell you why. So for me, when I think about play, I think play can be so many things. Some of the folks that I usually talk about when I think about play is Johan Hunzinger talks about how play is very cultural, right? I think about how many of the moments where, Miss Mary Mack or other things or other plays that we learned, but when we meet someone that's from a different part of the world, they might play the same game, they might have different words, right? Or they say a different color, or their hands move in a different way, because play is also very, very cultural. It's part of who we are, where we grew up, it's geographical. And I think it's important to remember that, because when we play together, it's like we're bridging cultures, like we're bringing together so much history, right, with us when we're playing together across differences. Play is also part of what D.W. Winnicott, who's a psychologist, as well as Jerome Berryman, who did a lot around godly play, talks about how play brings out this sense of the true self, right? So when you're playing, it's harder to put up the facade, right? It's harder to have to do the code switching. It's harder to do that because you kind of get caught up in the fun, the playfulness of play. And what that happens is your true self begins to emerge. And so now we're able to see people in all of their humanity and dignity. We're not just floating heads of information. We're now people with that are fully embodied. And what I find, especially when I'm teaching, when I start classes with play, so often when we start with a place of dignity and seeing people as embodied selves, people tend to show more care for each other throughout the class. They're not trying to just downplay or dismiss. They genuinely listen because they remember they're talking to another embodied person, not just someone who's quoting whatever from whatever book. And it makes a difference. So play really helps bring out this true self. And Courtney Goto talks about how play makes space for finding and losing ourselves, acting and believing as if in a world of possibilities. And so for so many folks that may not have access to be able to dream, as Patrick Reyes in his book, The Purpose Gap, sometimes dreaming is a privilege, right? It's this space where I can dream, I can decide to be something else. I remember the first time I played house or, I played doctor or something like that. That was, at that time, I hadn't met many Black women doctors as a little girl, but I was like, no, I don't want to just be the nurse. I want to be the doctor. What does that mean? But the fact that I could try it on, the fact that I could see how it fit in the play, I learned my ethics, I learned who I was, I acted and believed it as if I saw this world of possibility and who I can be and what I could be in the world. And so play really allows this space where we can make meaning, where we can figure out who we are, who our play partners are. If I'm playing, Red Rover, am I going to go over the hands? Am I going to go under? If someone goes around, are they cheating? And how do I feel about their cheating when they do? Because it tells me so much about my ethics and morals and also theirs, who they want to be, how they want to show up in the world, how I want to show up in the world, and what that means. We learned all of that on the playground. We learned all of that for me, I'm a softball, volleyball girl. I also learned that when I was a libero digging these balls. I learned that when I was playing shortstop, getting hit by balls in the face, right? I learned all of those things, right? And so for me, play is this space where we get to figure out who we are, how we're showing up in the world, and who our play partners are. And for those that identify as Christian, I identify as Christian, but I know there are many that don't, that have more of a spiritual vocation or just in general being. And so for me, it's still this space where, as Katie Cannon would say, you're doing the work your soul must have. Like play helps you realize this is what I'm passionate about, how I'm connecting my passion and my purpose, and how play, when we put some intentionality, some reflection behind it, can help us get there. Because as Brene Brown would say, we're all linked, right? As Martin Luther King, I mean, literally, Fannie Lou Hamer was quoted earlier today. Literally, we need each other, right, for liberation and freedom. And when we play, we're bringing each other into this conversation together, as opposed to just letting one main narrative dominate what's happening. And another thing that I think is always really important to remember when we're doing play is that, yes, we know the kinesthetic part, our body, the physiological movements, how important that is for the endorphins, for all of the things. But I think we forget sometimes how connected that also is to our brain and our minds. I just remember a time when you were probably, writer's block, right? That's what we call it. We can't find the words, we can't find the thing. And then all of a sudden we get up, we move our bodies, and then bam, it comes to us. That's not a bam. You have, when you move your body, your mind creates new neural pathways. You have new brain synapses that move. So now you're able to see things in new ways, new perspectives. Why do you think kids are the biggest, greatest problem solvers? Because they are constantly moving. They're constantly in motion. So when we are moving our bodies, we are better and more creative problem solvers. We have new ideas, new things spring up. The movement, the body, all of the thing that happens are really important. And there was a study out of Brigham Young from Silicon Valley that says you're actually 20% more productive when they went to some of the tech companies, and they were like, hey, they have Nerf guns in there. They have, gaming systems in there. Again, I'm not an advocate for actually all this productivity. I think we are overproductive and we need to sit down sometimes. I'm just going to say that, and rest more, because that is also resistance. And I believe that truly. But for this survey purposes, it was saying they were actually more productive when they actually made space for play. So literally, if companies can see the importance of body movement and play and having space, I think we should be able to remember that as well. And so for me, how I define play, I try to define it very broadly in the book. I see play as an embodied aesthetic experience and a cultural expression that are part of what it means to be human in the world, right? So that means play then becomes an epistemological, ontological reality. It's the way we come to know. As I said, when I was playing Double Dutch or any of the games that I'm playing, that's how I became to know who I am. How am I going to jump in? Am I going to be too scared to jump? Am I going to take the risk, even if I get hit a couple times? Because, any double dutcher knows you will get hit several times until you figure out how to actually jump the ropes. But That's my way of knowing, right? My way of being. Am I just going to continue to be scared? Or am I going to continue to just say, I can do this? How am I going to turn the ropes for other people? Who is turning my ropes? It goes so many levels. It's really about how we make meaning through play and through all of these playful ways. And so how I usually frame this, again, coming from a Christian perspective, I find God to be very playful. I think about the act of creation itself. Y'all, I read the Bible and I cackle as a Christian. I think about creation itself. I think about clownfish, giraffe. I mean, God just said, hey, let's just create. I think about the talking donkey in Balaam. I mean, a talking donkey. I mean, and that was a sassy talking donkey. I mean, was on it. And not to mention, I always find Jesus to be a little bit petty, but in a really great way, because I think I'm a little petty too. But when he told tax collectors to go get their money out of the mouth of a fish, I would love to tell the IRS to go get their money out of the mouth of a fish, but I would be in jail somewhere. But I feel like the Bible is chalked up with dance and music and play. So then why are we taking everything so seriously? Why are we not bringing this playful spirit into our sermons, into our Bible studies, into everything that we're doing? What would it look like to go out and have church outside in nature on a nature walk? Why can't that be a sermon in itself? Look and see the beauty that God has already given us out here, right? And I think how much of that is part of how we can move through the world. So for me, my framework is very biblical to start. But again, part of who we are, epistemology, our body, environment, and womanism. And I think environment's really, really important. Motman and Courtney Goto talk about this notion of counter environment. And that's what I feel like play allows us. It allows us space to try on things new, as Courtney Goto said. And I think it's important because I want to make sure that I steer away from safe language. Right. So when I was a youth minister, so I'm a former youth minister. And so I had a young man, and I'm going to curse, I'm going to say an expletive. So there we go. I mean, I'm going to use his words. We were at a retreat and he came up to me. He said, Miss Keisha, I appreciate you and all, saying things are safe, but that safe space stuff, that's bullshit. I said, oh, tell me more, friend. Tell me, tell me more. And he was just like, hey, someone just called me the N-word. And, that's just not cool. So you're real cool, but don't promise me something you can't deliver. And the moment I heard that, I said, you are absolutely right. And so often we're promising things that we can't deliver, and we're actually causing more harm, right? Especially when we're working with young people. So for me, I feel like in those moments, safety becomes a privilege for certain people in certain bodies, right? And how they identify in the world. And so what that means is if we can't keep everyone safe in the same way, and I'm not talking safe, physically with, buildings, I'm talking about, just in general, emotional, all that kind of safety, then we need to rename what we can do, because we shouldn't be promising things that we can't do, nor should we be privileging certain bodies over other bodies. So I've begun to use some language of brave, sacred, holy. One group actually chose to name their space safe, but only after they set the parameters for what that meant for them, right? So they know we're going to call each other in and out. I'm going to tell you why it's not okay to put your hand in my hair. And we're still going to keep on moving and saying this is okay and have that conversation. I also like the term clearing space because I'm a Toni Morrison fan. And in her book, she talks about the moving and the clearing and the dancing. And that's just my vibe. So I also use clearing space. But play helps ritual. I remember during COVID, I did so many lament rituals on virtually, like lament. And I know Chaplain Daniela was talking about renewal and healing. And I feel like play allows space for that as well. Again, cultural expression, an act of rest, of Sabbath, however you want to view play, because it can hold so much. And I think play actually invites us to listen also for mental health concerns as well. And I always say I like to recommend a book because I always say do no harm. This is not my area, but she is Dr. Jessica Young Brown is a licensed therapist, psychologist, and her book Making Space at the Well specifically looks at Black congregations and like things that we do. She has like a liturgy for mental health at the end. It's a really small but really great book. But how we can listen to that and sometimes play makes space for allowing those things to be seen and heard. And so creating and curating environment. And so for me, womanism is part of how a lot of this is covered for me, right? So Alice Walker speaks about this in her book In Search of Our Mother's Gardens, but essentially 4 parts. 1, radical subjectivity that I really talk about as how you embrace yourself in my book. So who am I? How do I show up? Identity, formation, saying this is who I am unapologetically, period, right? Radically. 2, traditional communalism. So this is very much going back to Fannie Lou Hamer. I'm not free until we're all free. Like it takes a community. It takes all of us together doing this beautiful work and this hard work. And so I name that as engaging culture and community. The 3rd one is redemptive self-love. I name this as embodying God's love for ourselves. This space where we realize we're going to mess up. We realize it is messy. We realize that the world is often against many of us, and yet we are still made in the image of a divine creator that loves us deeply. And that means we are deeply lovable, that we are deserving of love, of rest, of care, of Sabbath, of play, of all the things. And the fourth one is critical engagement, which I call enkindling the world, which is essentially like setting the world on fire for justice, pushing back places of inequity, seeing where all these places of intersectionality happen and how we can push and move. So it's this beautiful movement of how you start with this inner work and you take your community with you and what creator, whomever you might be with, and then you move that out to actually make effective change in the world, which is my vibe and part of what I think Double Dutch helps us do, which takes me to kind of my book. And as I begin to get ready to close, because I know my time, but this is my book. And essentially in my book, I talk a lot about the jump rope and then double dutch. So I talk about the jump rope as the tightrope, which is the one dominant narrative we also hear, which is white, cis, heteronormative, white male way of being in the world. This is the narrative we're often heard, that we're often told, that we're saying this is what is right. And yet, what about double dutch? What about these other ropes that are just as important, right? So for me, think of W. Du Bois, right? This double consciousness, right? For me, that's like double dutch, this other language we have to know, this other way of being in the world that remembers our bodies, not just our minds, that remembers all of who we are. And the thing is that we're the only ones that often have to do this double labor, this double work, this double dutch. And so I talk about it from a Black woman's perspective. I'm constantly having to do double dutch in the academy, in my classrooms, and the things that I'm doing in the world. And so part of what I say is, why don't we do double dutch together? Right? Why are we the only ones having to do this double work? We should all be double dutching together. So in the book, I use double dutch as an extended metaphor in many ways. I talk about double dutch as the game that we're playing and how it's actually really great for, exercise and wellness and for community and for culture, but how it's also a reality for Black women that we're often having to do this double labor, double work and not getting recognized for it. And it is hard and it is scary and it is risky and it is exhausting. Right? It's wonderful at the end, but it's still exhausting. I talk about it as a pedagogical tool, how we can actually use this kind of work in classrooms to talk about what it looks like to do this double work, how someone can enter into this double work. I talk about as the dual body mind connection. We can't just stay in our minds. We have to take our bodies. We are fully embodied people. We're not floating heads. We need the connection. This is how we were made and created. We need all of us. I talk about it as a methodology for resisting disembodiment, literally saying this is active resistance, right? Actively moving our bodies, actively making this choice. And I talk about how it's a strategy for decolonization, right? So we can use play to decolonize spaces because those spaces were often not meant for many of us. I know the academy was not. It wasn't meant for me or anyone that looks like me, right? Even just the building, the way it was made, it wasn't meant for anyone in a wheelchair, right? Like so many things were not made for many people and many bodies, but how when we bring play, it can begin to tear down some of those systems, some of those ways of being, and really create more liberative spaces, liberative practices, and just generally liberative ways of being. And that is probably my greatest hope for this book, is that in playing, it creates more liberation, more liberative spaces, that people feel freer, that they remember that we are called to play, to be, but we are also worthy and deserving of rest. We are worthy and deserving of play. We are worthy and deserving of all of the good things. And play is good for us mentally, physically, just in our community and all of who we are. So that is my book. That is my presentation, but I am so excited to talk more about it. So
So we're going to give you all about 8 minutes to chat with each other. What games did you play as a child? Do you play them now as an adult? And what memories come up for you? So you had a good practice earlier when we started. And then the next question is, do you feel connected to spirit, God, the divine, your elders, your ancestors, and how were they passed down in your community or in your tradition?
Thank you, Cynthia. And I'm sorry for jumping the gun, but this conversation has just been so delightful. And I was even thinking about it earlier today when I saw the women from the WNBA with their shirts on. I won't get into that question just yet, but it's also very relevant. And I think what came up not only for me in hearing this, but also in my breakout session, was an appreciation for you in your expansiveness of defining play, right? And how, and I'll use some of your metaphor, this concept of the tightrope, right? of what has been defined for us, the history that comes behind it, has limited our imagination of what play can be, right? Um, and some folks had called out, and you had mentioned in the Bible, thinking about creation as play, right? And one of the folks in my session had mentioned uh, being a crafter and crafting as play, and that imagination and everything else that comes along with that. So I think that was the beauty of this discussion in this space, because we have folks from such a broad range, um, but giving that back to us. So thank you so much for that piece of it. I also, for folks who haven't read this book, Um, I encourage it for folks that aren't even like theological students, because again, the setup in the first section of it, where you do talk about the different ropes, the different systems and everything else. There's a wonderful section where you talk about, and this also comes back in our breakout session, the tropes that Black women have to deal with, right? And you even call out, well, not, you call in Shonda Rhimes for her portrayal of different characters and whether or not she is playing the game in this larger system, right? Um, and so even when I was reading this book, I called one of my friends who's a doula, and I'm like, girl, I know you're not in theological school, but you should read this, because this is how it plays out in these systems that we're constantly interfacing with, and doing this double dutch, whether it's, for you, it started out in your seminary. Again, that retelling of the story of being patted on the head. There's a moment in the book, and you could probably tell the story better, but being amongst your peers and they're getting handshakes, and then I think it was the professor, the dean, was like, "Oh, well, you're attractive." And for me, even though that wasn't my exact experience, it resonated in so many different ways of being in these systems and what that means as a Black woman, playing double dutch in our areas. But I think the other thing that came up for me, but also in our breakout session, is how reclaiming play, redefining play, is liberatory. But also, and I was trying to go through all my many notes in here, but how it also is memory and recall, right? And we had shared the hand game slides that you had mentioned earlier. And though we may not do it right, or one person, Alexis, wants to share it with the next generation, but how even us embodying that play takes us back to a certain time and a place, and that memory and recall. So again, I just want to thank you so much for the presentation, for the book, and just giving us some language for some experiences that we've had, but also permission, right, to move forward. So now for my questions. We got a glimpse of your story in the opening video, but could you share more about what inspired you to write this book? How did your own spiritual, cultural, and embodied journey shape your understanding of play as theological?
Thank you. I will say I'm in a place where I'm trying to learn how to receive. So that's why I'm like, okay, just stay silent. Don't try to just receive it. So thank you. I don't take that lightly from any of you. Even especially my group, and we just had a good conversation. So I just rub it in. So if you see me rubbing myself, I'm trying to hold on to it, because I know I need to work on receiving. So that's my thing now, is rubbing it in. But I want to hit three things before I answer that. First, you were talking about creativity. Someone was a crafter. And one of the things I always say is we have been created by a creative creator to create. It is literally within us. Literally how we created. So creativity is spouting out of us. It might look different than someone in different ways, but it is there if we allow ourselves the expansiveness to be creative, right? Like it is there. We can curate that. And yes, permission to move forward, permission for freedom. And I feel like for me, writing the book was also giving myself permission to name that, right? Like for me, I feel like my journey through the PhD, through all of this, through the, all of the isms, the patting on the head and all of that is it was like this permission for me to say this is something, right? For me, play has always been a space where I have felt strong, right? When I didn't have the other language, like I felt when I was a libero playing volleyball, like I was bombed, right? Like I'm jumping over bleachers. You couldn't tell me anything. The ball was gonna go. It was gonna move. It was great. Or if I'm playing shortstop, I mean, it didn't matter the skin knees, it didn't matter the bruises, it didn't matter any of that. Like it was in my element, and I felt that. And when I started dancing, I used a Zumba instructor. I spent some time in Spain. They like to say they taught me how to really move my hips. But just it's the movement of it. For me, that's kind of how I always spoke to the divine. For me, that's because of so much, I think, as being a Black woman, I feel like growing up, my body was always objectified, especially again, being a volleyballer, we wore short shorts. So it was, and your girl I had a booty, right? Like I still do. I mean, it's just there. It's glorious and wonderful, and it's there. But growing up, those aren't the things you want to hear about. Like I'm focused. This is what I'm doing. But it was comments. It was the constant objectification. It was the constant, oh, your hair looks like this, or it was always something. And so for me, it was the sports that kind of helped me reclaim my own body, right? Like it helped me reclaim, like, even though this is what the world is saying about me, this is who I am. This is how I want to show up. I love my body. I love the way it is. I love, the babies that came out, the change that has happened within my body, like all of these things that have happened, but it took time to get there. And so for me, play and dance and movement have always been part of my story. I didn't realize how big a part they were going to be until I continued on in seminary, and I had amazing Black women and family in my life that just spoke into me like this is your thing. No one else is talking about this. And so, because in my mind, I'm thinking, if no one else is talking about this, then something is wrong with me. Like I just need to keep it to myself. And they're like, no, girl, like this is a gift. You need to share this. You need to spread this. And then in undergrad at Claflin, I had a professor. Her name is blanking out. It'll come back to me in a minute. I can see her face right now. But I read Intisaki Shange's choreo poem for Color Girls. Changed my life. And I was like, oh, these are my people. People are talking about this. People are talking about movement. I read Toni Morrison. I'm like, oh, people are talking about movement and play and dance. I was like, I just wasn't reading them, right? Like, because of course, growing up, that's not what they give you to read in school. That's not what they give me to read in high school. I was reading Catcher in the Rye. I was reading all these other things. And I'm like, this is what I should have been reading. These are my people. This is a thing. And the more I read, the more I realized like no one was really talking about this. No one was talking about how this has been this place of safety and security, this place of rest, of resistance, of when I got patted on my head, I went back to my room and I danced. I cried and I danced. And it was that moment where I'm talking to God, like, why would you let this happen to me? Like how horrible, but I'm moving because I needed to release it from my body. And that was my communication. And so for me, this book was always inside of me. I just needed to get it out. And I needed to get it out in a way that didn't feel like I was giving all of it up for me. So everything's not in the book. There's still some that was just for me. But the educator in me needed to give it out in a way where people could learn from it. I just had a conversation in a group that was like, well, Double Dutch isn't it just hours? Like, I don't want to have to keep teaching people. And for me, I feel like some of us are called to teach. I'm an educator. Part of my call is to teach. I want to teach them the history. So even if someone that is not a person of color picks up this book, they're going to learn this history. They're going to learn about these tropes. They're going to learn why they need to be jumping this other rope. They're going to learn why they need to do their work, right? Like that's part of what I want people to feel called to too, while also still saying, this is still ours. You know what I mean? And here are some practices and here are some things that can help you, because the educator in me wants to teach, but everyone's not called to be the educator. Right? Not everyone needs to be responsible for the ignorance of others, because guess what? We can all read history. We can all read things. We can all learn. But I'm called to be an educator. And so that's part of my call. And so it's always in me, and I wanted to get it out. And so that's kind of how it shaped and how it shaped into a very practical book with practices. I didn't want it to just be I'm going to say things. I wanted to be practice it. If I could have had a companion video go with it, I would have. I mean, and I might actually like do something on my website or something, like to have videos. I don't know, because I want that embodied piece with it. But I needed it to breathe a little bit off the page. when I was writing it. So that's kind of the formation of it. It's always been in there. It took me a while to find words.
No, that's good. You talked a little bit about this being ours, but on page 130, you write, in using a womanist pedagogy, it is imperative to do double Dutch in order to teach the dominant narrative and the narrative of the marginalized. Could
Yeah.
you briefly unpack what you mean by these two narratives and
Mhm.
what you see, um, and do you see space for womanist pedagogy of play and theological double Dutch to be practiced within other religions and spiritual traditions beyond Christianity?
Thank you for that. So first I want to say I absolutely do. I feel like play and womanism, why I feel like we have Christian roots in womanism. I feel like it is far expansive, right? Like it's more cultural, it's more embodied, it's more than that. It's whatever you might identify as creativity, as spirit, as other, I think can feel that piece. I just happen to identify it as God, as a Christian, but I think there's always space for that. But for me, so in the book, I talk about the tightrope, which is that one dominant narrative, and I talk about the second rope, which I identify as womanism. Which honestly, depending on how you identify, it could be mujerista theology, it could be indigenous traditions, it could literally for me, it's the point of adding in other voices, right? And so part of me is that the tightrope is the rope that is there. I can't erase history. Like we know what happened. Like as much as I like to pretend that it does not exist, sometimes it does. And part of it is that's how we also can learn. We can learn so the history does not repeat itself. Although I don't know if we're doing too good these days around some of this, but that's neither here nor there. So, but it's we know that that's there. We're not going to pretend like it's not there, right? However, what we can do is say it's not complete until you have these other voices, until there is a womanist rope, until there is an indigenous rope, until there is an LGBTQIA plus rope. Until like right, until there are all these other ropes, these other voices, these other marginalized lives and experiences that need to be lifted up. For me, I'm highlighting womanism because I identify as a womanist. And I believe that the womanist tradition, as I mentioned, actually, again, Fannie Lou Hamer, we're not free until you're all free. That's how Black women actually, like, literally, that is part of what womanism is. We need us all to be free. And so for me, this happens to be the pedagogy that is actually a very expansive pedagogy. That's what allows my play definition to be so expansive because I'm drawing from that language. I am drawing from that sense of we care about everyone. And if we're caring about everyone, we can't just jump with one rope. Yes, that might be the history, but we need more ropes to actually be complete. We need more ropes to actually hear other voices, to actually push forward, to actually push towards liberation and freedom. Other voices need to be heard, not just this tightrope. Like that's not sustainable. It's just not anymore. And we need other ropes. And so for me, that's really what I push for. And at kind of, again, a part of the book is I kind of end with like, we need to all be doing double Dutch together. Right. Like that's really where I want us to get because I think everyone can learn from womanism, regardless of if they identify as a Black woman. Our tenets, how we move, just caring for others, identifying. Because again, even if you're not Black, you need to know who you are. You need to start with embracing yourself. Like, what are your own biases that you have? What you can't do the work with other people unless you do the work yourself. Like literally doing your work, and then who are your people? Who's your community? Who are you surrounded by? I feel like I remember going to college, and my dad was like, "Who's on the front row in your seat, and who are going to be your friends while you're in college?" And da 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 da. And I'm like, "Oh man, that's too heavy. I wasn't ready." But it made sense. Like who I'm surrounded by affects who I am and how I show up in the world, right? So if you're like, "Oh, my friends X, Y, and Z, and I don't agree," well, then why? Right? So all of this is connected, and play is a part of it, but that's very womanist. And so for me, that's all a part of how we add these ropes, add these voices, add these narratives. But again, I don't think it has to be Christian. It is for me because that's just how I identify. But again, literally any what spirituality you bring to it, whoever you bring. I know womanists that are Muslim. I know some that identify various other traditions. And there's just space because at the end of the day, it's about people. It's about you. It's about community. It's about whomever you might identify as the other or creator or spirit, and then moving out to make change in the world. Like that's it can transcend, and I think that's the beautiful part because it's so intersectional and transcended that it's just really just powerful when you think about those four tenets.
I think that's beautiful, and how it can be used to change the world. So I guess uh, my final question before I turn it over to audience questions is, in a world that is heavy with systematic oppression, violence, and spiritual fatigue,
Mm.
how do you respond to those who may see play as frivolous or non-serious? How is play actually a form of resistance and healing, particularly for Black people and communities of color?
I appreciate that. Part of me feels like, as a chaplain, you could probably answer this question better than me. But I'm going to give it a shot. But you feel free to arousal in there. No, but I will say there are parts of play that are frivolous. There are parts of play that are not serious, and that is a beautiful part of it. Like we can, I feel like there are so many spaces where we cannot just exist in our Black bodies. The code switching, the constantly having to be on the micro and macro aggressions on a daily basis. As you mentioned, they are exhausting, they are taxing, they are, I mean, I think I've looked at my therapist every day. Like literally, I'm like, sis gets me through. I just the amount that we encounter on a daily basis, the traumas, the triggers, the church hurt. I mean, literally, you name it, so many different things. And for me, what I've discovered, play therapy is a very real thing for a reason, right? I have family members that do play therapy. Like it's a space of, number one, again, as someone who was objectified and needed to reclaim their body, that embodiment was a beautiful way for me to reimagine my body by playing. Who can I be? Again, trying, acting and believing as if the more you act and believe as if, the more it becomes my reality. Right. The more it's like, oh, I can play this. Oh, now I can actually do this. Right. Like, oh, I can do this more. I can say no more. I can do these kinds of things. So it's like, while it can have moments of frivolous and non-serious, it's also very serious too, because it seriously helps you. It can heal these parts. It can help you resist. So for me, when I was first doing my dissertation, when I was first doing these things, I was really worried because I thought people were not going to take me seriously in the academy. I was like, okay, I'm a Black woman and I'm doing stuff on play. Oh gosh, this is not going to go well. But I knew this was what I was called to do, right? Part of my call is also to disrupt space, and that's what play does. Play literally disrupts a space because you are laughing, because you are embarrassed, because of whatever. It's disruptive. And for me, I feel like that's part of what, for me, the divine calls us to do, is to disrupt these places of oppression and violence. And when you're doing that through play, people don't have time to be worrying about, let me objectify you. They're too busy playing. And then while we're playing, I can add some intentionality behind it and talk about, so why did you feel the need to do that while I throw this ball at you? Right? Like let's talk about that. And so it's actually this amazing place to do that. But for me, play has allowed me to resist, because I say that no, play actually makes me more serious because I can tell you the benefits of it, right? Again, we talked about the neurological benefits. There are the kinesthetic physiological benefits within my body, but also being able to say, I am deserving of play. Like, just because you don't want to rest does not mean I don't want to rest. I am made better and made whole when I get to, get on a dominoes table and kiki with my friends. We all need that space of renewal, of rejuvenation, of when I can let down that mask, when I don't have to code switch, when I don't have to worry about a microaggression every 5 seconds. I get to just exist in my Black body, and it is beautiful and wonderful. And we are all deserving of that kind of space, even though the world would say that we are not. So for me, I feel like play is a way we can say, no, I'm resisting your desire to tell me to be overproductive. I'm resisting your desire to tell me how I have to show up, that I can't be playful and wear my colorful blazer. I will, because it's amazing, and I'm going to continue to do it. Right? Those are my ways of, because to me, that's also playful. How you dress, your aesthetic, that's all part of play for me, because that's how we choose to show up. And I'm like, that's how we resist, how we can push back to say, this is how I'm going to show up, regardless of what you're telling me. And you're just going to deal with it. And so play makes space for that. And so, yeah.
That's like a whole sermon right there. We do have a question from the audience. It's in that same vein. What do you have to say about play as a way of creating capacity of joy?
Mm. So it's so funny. I wrote an article. It was in the Presbyterian Outlook, I think. And I'm trying to remember the way that I phrased it. I feel like I'm not going to remember the way that I phrased it, but I talked about it as oh, I can't even remember. But I said it so beautifully in the article, right, when I had time to think about it. But I think play definitely has the capacity to bring about joy, but I feel like that's not the only thing. And that's the piece that I don't want people to rush to. Oh, it can curate joy. It can be a space for joy. I'm like, yes, it can. And also, it is a container that can hold rage. It is a container that can hold grief, It is a container that can hold, all of these feelings. So yes, it can absolutely lead to joy and happiness and all these things. And it also has the capacity to hold emotions for these other things too, right? I've done a lot of grief work, lament rituals around play, like all of these things. So it's like, yes, and it can also do more than that. I'm like, now I feel like I remember the language I'm gonna figure out what it was like midway at some point. Joy as an intentional disruption, because again, I see play as disruption. So then it's like, if we see joy as that capacity, then joy is intentional disruption too. There you go. I remember that language now. So and I'll just leave it there. So it's like yes and more.
Okay. I know you talk a lot about doing the work inward to do it outward. And in the book, there are some recommendations of play and affirmations and things like that. For those who are listening who are church leaders or invested members of faith group, what might playful embodied worship service look like as a collective? What rituals, songs? Yeah.
Well, first I'll say every space is different, so you need to know your space. And I think, doing some kind of so again, if we're thinking about women's practice, community, created out. So part of it is getting people in touch with themselves, and then maybe what if you came together and be like, hey, who are we? What are we talking about? Like realizing who they are. But first, I want to say, I know some of my stuff is embodied, and I want to also name that when I do this, I also say there's also a place to witness. There's also ways to do this for low mobility. There's always ways to adapt, to adjust. So I just want to name that as well. But when I think about this, I think about number one, intergenerational. Why are our kids always subjugated to the back? Let them be here. Let them be a part of it. And number one, they have amazing ideas. I promise you. Let's just listen to some of these kids. We be great. So that's number one. Let them be a part. But for me, again, so it's not just the play. Now it's the educator in me, because I truly believe that everything teaches. Everything, what you have on the wall, what happens when you walk in the door, what your parking lot looks like. Do you have flowers outside? To me, that's all part of play, your aesthetic, how you show up. So what does the outside of the building look like? Is it even welcoming? How does it appear? What do you see when you walk in? When you walk in, am I seeing a picture of a blonde hair, blue eyed Jesus? Right? Like, what does it mean? What am I seeing? Who's represented? What is there? Are there colors? Did you tap into the quilting ministry so they could put up a quilt somewhere, or put up some pictures of the people that actually attend there? Who is there? What is there? Are the aisles separated? Are things together? Are you in a circle to represent community, or are you not? Is the pastor only up the stairs at a lectern, or are they down on the floor with the people? Like, all of these things teach. All of these things are playful and matter. When you do a sermon, are you using examples? Are you playful? Do you switch it up? Do you give out things? Do you have other people speaking? Do you go outside and play in nature? Do you have people play with Play-Doh? I mean, there are literally so many ways that you can bring parts of this in. What if you have some outside at the basketball? Literally, ministry happens in so many different ways. Words can happen while you're up here playing double dutch, while you're playing basketball, while you're doing all of these things. Those are still ways that we can minister. And again, who's involved, colors, songs. Now, I want to say there are some hymns. Y'all, can we get away from the light and dark images? Can we get away from all of these things that are so divisive? I'm like, y'all, what? Let's write some songs. Okay, so one of the things in my book is I talk about reimagining scripture, right? Like how that is a very playful practice. What if you took the scripture that you find the most traumatic and you went through and changed the words to where it could actually be uplifting? What if we did that to different songs? What if you went through and said, hey, we keep singing this song. I actually find this to be very problematic. Let's rewrite it. The thing is, we feel like we can't do things just because I don't have a song license, or I'm not. Guess what? We have been created by a creator to create. Be expansive, take up all the space, right? Like, go in, rewrite the song. Like, let's sing this one. Or how about let's do this one? What does this look like? How can we bring this in? What would it look like to do that as a community, right? Get everybody involved. What if you had a sing off? What if you had a song off? I mean, who can write the best one? Let's try it out and write our own book and then get that published so everybody can have it out here. So there's just so many things, honestly, at this point. Literally, when you're doing Bible studies, why don't you actually use some examples? I'm trying to remember one I did specifically where we were talking about the Lord will ever put more on you than you can bear. Literally, had everybody had backpacks. The persons had to go outside, keep putting rocks in it, walk around, put rocks in it. How heavy is it? How heavy is it? Now, what does it look like to have them out? What does it really mean to have burdens lifted? Right? Like, how can we actually think about? For me, it's very multiple intelligences. Right? How do we think about kinesthetic, musical, naturalist? How people find the divine? They communicate in so many different ways. Everyone doesn't just isn't just this one way. Some people need music, some people need art, some people need, texture, some people need nature. Use it all. We have it all. Be expansive. Sorry, that gets me real excited, clearly.
No, it's great. And I think this is perfect because sometimes people think they have to start like with big things,
Just
but it's like those little things that make.
oh,
Mhm.
everything teaches, even the little things. Who's on the wall? What's the way when you open the door? Does the door creak when you open it? What's there when you see? I mean, it's literally every little thing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, I have a question in here. I'll just remind folks if you have any further questions, I think I might have time for one or two more. So don't be shy, drop them in the chat or send them to the moderators. But in the meantime, I'll ask this question is a statement and a question.
Mhm.
Um, Rose writes, in this season, I have been following what I call deep belly laugh moments to discern the work my soul must have.
Mm,
Isn't that beautiful? What
yes.
somatic signal shows you the
Mhm.
intersection for the work you love, play, and sense of vocation?
That's good. It's so funny because I was talking about earlier, like how I rub it in, um, and so for me, like it's like I feel like literally I will be teaching classes and like the hair on my arms will raise, right? Like when these moments, I don't know if you've been seeing in here. There's Claire Benson is a student. She's in the chats. When I was at when I taught like a January term class at Candler, and when I tell you, I like every day, it's just the hairs would raise, right? Like, and usually there's also something in the back of my neck, right? But it's not a pain. It's like it's hard to explain. It's like a warm, right? Every time I feel it, I'm just reminded of like fire shut up in your bones, and I'm just reminded of like how we're called to like enkindle the world, like just light stuff on fire. Like I just get a warmness in my neck. So for me, but some of that's also about being in tune with your body, right? Because some people might just say, "Hey, your neck's burning. You probably just need to go cool off," right? Like something's wrong. That's not. But for me, it's usually those very kind of textile, or like not textile, textured, the hair raising or like the skin, like the temperature of my body that goes up or things that happen. Sorry, my pencil just dropped. Um, I'm trying to think if there's anything else. Um, when it's not, I feel it in my lower back. But again, being in touch with my body, right? So when something is off or when something isn't, so it's like I know a little bit of both and like when something feels like it's not there, I know where I feel it. But when it's aligned, it's like I know where I'm feeling it. And generally, most of the time, most class experiences, I will have one or two of those experiences. And that's this constant reminder for me, like, this is what I'm called to do. This is how I'm called to show up in the world. Like, not only do I get joy and excitement, like I'm the one that like literally loves to create a syllabus because I start from the end and then I move to the beginning. I'm like, oh, how can I add in this? Where's this podcast going to go? How can I like genuine excitement, right? Like when I'm curating, right, this space. And then when I'm there and I'm having my students jump, I'm having them play and they're dancing and they're doing literally in class. Like, yes, I'm that professor. Like we're dancing in class, we're throwing balls in class, we're playing with Play-Doh, we're painting, we're doing, because I incorporate that in everything I do, and then they go out and incorporate it. So then I get those emails that are like, "Oh, I did this, and then this happened," and then just the chills, the heat, the all the things, and so it's just that's just a constant reminder to me that I'm still doing what I feel called to do. I'm still disrupting the space. I'm still being who I'm called to be, and I think the day I don't get those is the day I know I need to start reevaluating.
That's beautiful. Let's see. I'm trying to keep up with the questions in here. Just lots of people giving you flowers.
Oh, y'all.
Okay, here's a question. First, thank you for this session. Earlier, you mentioned moments when you are in your head and realize that you forgot to bring your body with you. When you realize this, what do you do to invite your body back with you?
Mm,
Or if after the fact, how do you reconnect with your body when you're in a comfortable space again?
that's a good
Thank you,
question.
Grace, for that. Yeah.
Yeah, thank you, Grace. That's a good question. So especially in acad, so I recently just went through like a promotion process for like tenure and promotion, and everything went well, but it was real only because originally I tried to enter it very, very here. I know it has to look this way. I know it has to show up this way. I know it has to, and then I did it like, and I had it there. I hadn't submitted it, but it didn't feel like mine. It didn't feel like me. Um, Everything was just so cerebral. It was just there. Like, here are the facts. Here's what this is. But I felt like they didn't see me. So, with probably about maybe a week and a half before I had to submit it, I went back, and I recorded a video for every single section. It's literally ridiculous. I mean, looking at it now, it wasn't ridiculous, but at the time, it was just a lot of work I did. But and I made it so that they had to watch the video before they could read any of the things in that particular section. So if there was a section about, even to enter my whole portfolio, it's like, this is who I am, right? And so in the video, this is what I'm talking about. I'm a Black woman, and I talk to a lot of my Black women students, but that's never going to be on any evaluation sheet that you will see. There's a lot of unseen labor that I do, and like that's the kind of stuff I'm talking about in my videos, or like I do a lot of embodied things, and when you see it on paper, you're not going to know what it's like, but this is how it feels, right? Like this is what I bring. This is how, right? And so for me, it was in the moment I was very heady. And once I felt it, I went back and I was like, it had to be better. It needed to feel me. Like if I wasn't going to get this, it needed to be on my own terms. It needed to be me 100% if I wasn't going to get promoted. I needed to say it was me. And then that was actually the main thing when they came back. They were like, we've never had anyone do this like before ever. Like it was disruptive. It caught me off guard, but I realized this is what you do in your class, and this is why it matters, right? So I feel like it's never too late to go back and try to adjust when you feel like you have left your body. Sometimes it's through moments like this, right? Like reminding you. Sometimes I do little breath prayers to re-invite my body back. Like if I'm in a physical space, just kind of like hey body, I love you. What's up, girl? Like literally just like I gotta talk to myself. Or like, hey, what are you feeling? I also do like little mini check-ins throughout the day with my body. I'm like, hey, like I'm feeling something. Again, I know my lower back is always a tell. So if I'm feeling something, then I'm like, And so I'll do like a little mini check-in, or I'll take a walk around, especially if I've been sitting, like little things like that remind me of who my body is, of where I am. And when I'm being too heady. Also having good people around you. I have an amazing spouse, and I mean, I have a 6 and a 3-year-old. They will always remind you that your body is bodying all the time. But good friends, good people, good family, that are like, that doesn't sound quite like you. So it's never too late to bring your body back and figuring out what's going to work for you. What is your thing? Is this like a thing for you? Is that something that feels better to you than saying something? So yeah, it's never too late.
Well, I appreciate you so much. And not only the academic work that you do, but just who you are in the world, and giving us this agency. So you do this, I do this too, because, that tightrope doesn't always allow us to receive things. But you have given us such a gift this evening, and
Mm.
I fully receive it and feel like we have the permission to move forward. So with that said, I'm going to turn it back over to Cynthia Perry. But thank you. Thank you so much.
Yes, thank you so much, Dr. Lockhart. Thank you, Chaplain Daniela, for this wonderful conversation. Our time has ended, but that doesn't mean that the series is over. We invite you to come back tomorrow to hear from Dr. Kira Gaunt. And so we're excited about that. Same Zoom link. Same time. So we hope to see you back tomorrow for a different conversation on double Dutch and hip hop. And also, please visit our website to learn more about the Black Sports Ministry Network. Hopefully, Rose is putting the links in the chat right now. We do ask that you donate to us so we can continue to have this programming on here. and to continue to do the good work that we're doing, reaching out to coaches, athletic directors, athletes, pastors, sports chaplains, sports fans. So please donate so we can continue this good work. And then also we're putting in the link to Dr. Lockhart's book. So please purchase her book. Please. It's really good. And we just want to support her scholarship as well. So thank you again, Dr. Lockhart, and thank you, Chaplain Harrigan, and thank you to everyone who joined on tonight. You took a few minutes of your evening to hang out with us, and we're glad that we could all play together. So thank you and have a good night.